Hey Mages, today we are heading to Explorer. I've got 3 budget meta decks for you. These decks are really quite competitive for the amount of rares that they do have in them. They are all under 10 rares, mixture of rare mythics. In fact, all of them actually have 8 in each, which is really good when you compare some of the top decks. I've looked to have 25, 30, 40, 50 rares in some, and they're best of 1 decks as well. That's not even including the sideboard. So, these, with under 10, 8 in each, are very, very low in the rare capacity. So let's take a look at the first deck for you. So the first deck I've got is a Gruul deck, which is red and green, and this is Coco Goblins. So Coco is because Collected Company, just abbreviated there, we always call it Coco. Collected Companies look at the top 6 cards of your library, put up to 2 creature cards with mana value 3 or less from among them onto the battlefield. Now, every single creature that we have in a deck is 3 or less. So we have a look at the stats on this: 32 creature spells and 4 non-creatures. Now, the only 4 non-creatures is the Coco Collected Company. So you've got a very high percentage chance of hitting these. Now, this is a very aggro deck. If Coco doesn't happen, you've still got a really good aggressive package in this, really good aggressive tribal package. So let's take a look at some of the creatures in there. Starting at the low end, we've got Fanatic Firebrand has haste. You can sack it and do 1 damage to any target. Foundry Street Denizen is it's just a brilliant card. If you can get this down early and spam a couple of creatures, or you're attacking in and then you play your Coco and you get 2 creatures coming in, as long as they are red, and pretty much every single creature is red, this will just be can be a really big attacker. Now, it only pumps the power, not the toughness, but it's still good. People just go, oh, I might not block it. You go through and then all of a sudden they're being hit for 2, 3, 4, anything like that. Skirt Prospector, sacrifice a goblin, add 1 red mana. We've all got goblins in there. As you can see, there's lots of goblins. So potentially you could sack some goblins on attack and maybe just Coco in. Maybe you'll get something better. One of my favourite cards in the deck is Battlecry Goblin, because it has that pump ability. You can pay 2 goblin creatures you control, get +1/+0, and gain haste to end of turn. Now, what I found myself doing in usual Coco decks that I play, you usually play this either at end of opponent's turn, or you flash it in on attacks or anything like that. But because we can give creatures haste, sometimes it is good playing it in your main phase, because you get that those extra creatures in. If you've got haste, you're swinging in with more attacks, and if you've got something like Grumgully the Generous on there, each other non-human enters the battlefield with a 1/1 counter. You're attacking bigger power, more toughness, and just swinging in potentially for the wins. Goblin Instigator comes in 2 bodies for 2 mana. Very nice. Ruined Vault Horde Master is one of the other rares. So it is 3 of these in there. And then we have 1 Goblin Bandit Lord. But first we're going to have a look at that. That's the rares in the deck. Horde Master is the pump effect for us. +1/1 to all other goblins. And it's not legendary as well, so we can get this on the field, potentially 2. And those little 1/1s becomes 2/2s, 3/3s. So you sort of get the idea. More power, swinging in. When Horde Master or another goblin you control dies, exile the top card of your goblin. Top target, I've got goblins on the mind. Exile the top card of your library. If it's a goblin creature card, you may cast it until the end of your next turn. So that gives you a very good chance of hitting that as well. Hobgoblin Bandit Lord gives other goblins +1/1. Now that's a straight upgrade. If you want to add more of these to the deck, I certainly would, because it's more Anthem features and it's not a legendary, so you can get these in there. But we're trying to keep it a budget version, and as few rares as possible to make the deck still cohesive and competitive. So we have 1 of these in there as well. This is in there as a 3 of, obviously, because it's a 2-drop. This is a 3-drop. Although it has a really good effect of deals damage equal to the number of goblins that enter the battlefield under your turn to any target that turn. It's still nice, but I do like the Horde Master over those 2. But if you do have more of these in your collection, just swap the rares around if you don't want to add any more rares. Just my advice. Goblin War Chief. Goblin spells cost 1 less to cast, and this is the important one. Gives them haste, which is what I'm saying about when you play Coco in your main phase. If you can give everything haste, you put it in an extra couple in there and getting in for the attacks. Spoke about how good Grumgully is. We're going to go to the land base now. Upgrading the lands is the first thing you probably want to do with all of these decks. This is where you save, you save land, but it's still, it's still consistent. You can see there's a lot of red in the deck. We have 13, but we don't want to be missing, being able to play Grumgully or the Collected Company. So we have 6 forests in there. Memorial to Unity. Look at the top 5 cards. You love a creature card and then put it in your hand, which I think is a one-off, is a nice uncommon one to put in there. And Racer's Ring can draw us card. Does come in tapped, but still, we've got enough basics, hopefully, to get some of these in early. And if we get Racer's Ring turn 1, we still get to play that and later on potentially draw a card. But, the way to play this is just aggro, dropping creatures, flying in. Well, not flying because these goblins don't have wings, but you know the expression. I mean, he's just really attacking from the ground and just basically going wide with the wins, and then hopefully you will rank up with this deck with a nice budget 8 rares. So if this is your type of thing, you love a bit of Gruul, this is the deck for you. But now we're going to take a look at the next deck. So now we are taken to the air because now we're going Budget Phoenix. Budget Phoenix is based around Arclight Phoenix. Now, potentially you can play this from your hand, but the idea of the deck is that you've got a lot of discard, draw spells, get this into your graveyard, chain off some spells, and then just swing in with these. If you get 4 of these in the graveyard, and then you manage to play those spells, we've got a lot of 1 mana spells, so we can chain off those spells. And it won't take many attacks to get in and get the win with this. But the other really good creature for me in this deck is Sprite Dragon. I've won so many games with this. Flying haste whenever you cast a non-creature spell, put a 1/1 counter on it. It has haste as well, so you can go flying in. So if you have a look at the stats on this one, 28 non-creatures is complete opposite to the previous deck. Has 12 creatures in this as well. So the rares for the deck are the Arclight Phoenix, and then the other rares in the deck is 4 Ledger Shredder. Ledger Shredder, flying, connive, cast a second spell each turn. You get to put stuff into the graveyard as well. It can just build up, and potentially Ledger Shredder with the flying with this one, and the flying from the Sprite, and obviously flying from Arclight Phoenix. You have that evasion, and you will just beat some decks as well because they don't have flying blockers. It doesn't run counter spells in this deck, which is I find that weird, playing in a spells sort of deck, but the reason for it is because you need to chain off those spells. If you're stuck with counter spells in your hand, you're not going to be able to chain off and get Arclight Phoenix from the graveyard potentially, or get more counters where you need them onto the Sprite Dragon as well. So it runs a lot of card draw and removal. We have Consider, Surveil, Draw a card. You can put these in there with the discard. Don't worry about doing that. You need to find your lands. And then if you've got this on the field, you're still triggering and still potentially triggering with the Ledger Shredder as well. We have Opt as a 4 of in there. We also have more card draw in Charter Course. This is draw 2 cards and discard a card unless you attack this turn, which is good if you want to attack first, but if you've got like the Sprite Dragon on the field, you want that counter really before you attack. So you might have to discard a card, but sometimes you need to discard. Strategic Planning is another one as well. 2 mana sorcery. Put the top 3 cards you like, 1 into your hand, then the rest into your graveyard. So we've got plenty of ways to get the Arclight Phoenix into the graveyard. So it can't be attacked in hand, can't be attacked until we're literally attacking in, and we're choosing the best time to chain off spells and get our attacks in. Removal, Lightning Axe that has a discard feature as well. Play with fire 2 damage, and we can scry, find cards we need. I've got a couple of Spike Hazards in there. There's a lot of elf decks out there, so getting rid of them, the 1 mana, and just stopping their early ramp sometimes is really helpful. Strangle, 3 damage to target creature or planeswalker sorcery, but 1 mana, really sweet. Land base. Swiftwater Cliffs, we've got 4 of these in there, and 9 islands and 7 mountains. Like I said, upgrading can be very simple on the lands, putting in your steam vents and anything like that will only make this deck a lot better, but we're keeping it as budget as we can. So if you don't play Explorer but you want a competitive meta deck, this is the starting point for you. I've played this deck, it's really fun, and a Sprite Dragon can just get hilariously big, and if they can't deal with it, you just keep attacking in and swinging for the wins. So the next decks we go to is Budget Boros, and this is a very spells matter type of deck, and what's different about this deck is the rares are actually put into the lands. Now lands you'll be able to use in many decks. The only 2 rares it runs bar the lands is Dreadhorde Arcanist, 2 mana, 1/3 trample. Whenever it attacks, you may cast a target instant or sorcery card with mana value less than or equal to Dreadhorde's power from your graveyard without paying its mana cost. It's a lot of words on this one. If that spell we put into your graveyard, you get to exile it instead. So a very good creature, 1/3, has trample as well, which is always good. But it's like I said, the other rares on this deck are in the land. So 4 Sacred Foundries going in there and 2 Battlefield Forge. So 6 lands, because we want to be getting these on the field, getting our creatures in early, like Monastery Swiftspear. We don't want to be missing. We really need to get the attacks and win quick with this deck. As you can see, another deck with a lot of 1-drops. It's literally got a 1.3 average CMC. 18 creatures, 24 non-creatures in this deck. Creatures that are really good. Illuminator Virtuoso. This card is sweet. Double strike. When a Virtuoso becomes target a spell you control, connive. So we have lots of spells. We've got Favoured Hoplite as a creature in there. Whenever you cast a spell that targets it, put a 1/1 counter on it as well and prevent all damage will be dealt to it this turn. We've got Defiant Strike, +1/0, draw a card. God's Willing, target, give it protection. You're going in there, you need to get the attacks of people trying to remove these important creatures for you. Homestead Courage, that has flashback, get a counter on, play it again, get another counter on as well. Ancestral Anger, one of the best cards in the deck. Target creature gains trample, which is very important when you're trying to pump up these creatures like Monastery Swiftspear, Favoured, and anything else on there. It gets trample, gets +X/+0, where X is 1+ number card's name, Ancestral Anger in your graveyard, and you get to draw a card as well. Reckless Rage, 4 damage to target creature you don't control and 2 damage to target creature you control. Very interesting, but you're looking to target your creatures as well, and if they're bigger, then, they stay, and good things happen, basically, to the deck. We've got a bit of protection, more, with Sajari Shelter. And then we've got this card, which I really do like. I've not in my collection either. Invigorated Rampage, target creatures +4 and gains trample. We love the trample. We want to be getting over. We want to put their little 1/1 blockers, token decks, or anything like that in front of it, and then we flash in the trample and just get loads of damage in. The other creature in the deck is 10th District Legionnaire, a really cool uncommon 2/2 haste. Whenever you cast a spell that targets 10th Legionnaire, put a 1/1 counter on it. So it's a very much target spell, targeting your own creatures, pumping them up, making them as big as you can, and getting in those little sneaky attacks, chucking in a bit of trample as well. This is a really cool deck. You've got save your protection spells for when you need them and use your pumps when you think it's best and everything like that. It's a deck that you'd have to put a bit of practice in. Land base, like I said already, we've got some good lands in Sacred Foundry, Battle Forge that can come in. So we've got some really good, you want some untapped lands potential. And then we've got some basics, a couple of Windcrag, just so we don't miss on the colours too much, because this is a very mix of red and white, unlike like the Grundeli deck, which is mainly, red. But if you can up some more lands, more Battle Forges is a good way to upgrade this deck. Like I said, all the decks could do with the full lands, but these are still competitive and will certainly get you wins. They're meta decks, they're on the meta ladder, that people have been playing them and doing well, and I think these versions of the decks ready to play until you can fully rare them out with the lands and everything like that, and they can only be better after that, but these are a great starting point for you to rank up on Explorer. So there's 3 budget Explorer decks for you. Take them to the best of one standard ladder, get some practice in. 8 rares in each of them, so very, very budget. I looked, like I said at the start of the video, I looked at some of the decks that had 40 rares. 50 rares in one was hilarious. Just absolute rare fest. But, when standard is getting a bit slow sometimes and we're waiting for new sets like we are now, it's good to try other formats and you not spend too much. I know everyone has really been supporting the budget content here, so I really do appreciate that. If you could hit the likes and, comment and leave me a comment, and if you're watching to the end here, you're an absolute star. Thank you to my Patreons for giving me that extra support. If that's something you want to do and you really want to help me push out more budget content and give me more time to do it, that's a good way to support the channel as well. You get to see the early deck lists on there before anyone else as well. So anyway, I hope you've enjoyed today's video. It's something a bit different with Explorer. Let me know what you think. You lot take care, and I'll see you on the next video.